Thank you so much. We are
Yes.
very honored. Welcome, everybody, to our special guests on Tuesday nights. And as we have all been talking about and thinking about what's going on in Eretz Yisroel, and also especially what is going on the college campuses all around the country. We've had shluchim and shluchos and students from Chabad campuses here throughout Illinois, Illinois State, University of Illinois, Loyola, Northwestern. And just recently, there was a trip of Shluchos, the Rebetzins from Chabad on campus from around the United States, to Eretz Yisrael to bring them. And one of those very special, the most special shlucha, is Mrs. Shlomit Epstein. And yes, she is married to my nephew, and she is the shlucha at the University of South Carolina. And I asked her, and she very readily agreed to join us. So Shlomit, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Thank you for having me. Doing well, thank God.
Baruch Hashem. So give us a little background. Tell us a little bit about your shlichus in University of South Carolina, and then sort of we'll talk about October 7th and what it's been like life on campus, and then what life has been like in your trip to Eretz Yisrael and your return. So tell us a little background.
A little background. So a little background about myself. I was born and raised in Crown Heights and married Yisroel Epstein. We were living in Crown Heights for about 3 years until there was my father-in-law realized that the Jewish students, Jewish life was growing, and they didn't have any, leaders, any directorship. So he was inquiring who would take on the role. And my husband at the time, he was doing computers. I was in nursing school, and my husband really wanted to take on this job, and so I agreed. And I transferred my school here to USC, and we moved down almost 10 years now. We're in our 10th year. We'll be celebrating 10 years in February, which is unbelievable to me. And Jewish life here has grown like quadrupled since we got here, and it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey.
Okay, so take us back, of course, to October 7th at Simchas Torah. What's going on in your Chabad house? When do you learn about what went on? What was some of the reaction of the students? And if you can, just give us a little verbal picture of what October 7th at University of South Carolina looked like.
So like everyone who was keeping the holiday to its fullest, we did not really understand the magnitude of what had transpired on the holiday itself. We had students coming to visit us, but they didn't want to share too much with us because they knew we were keeping, the holiday, but they said there was been a terrorist attack. We knew that it was something really big. We knew that they were jarred from it. And then fast forward, as soon as the holiday ended, we went on our phones and of course learned the horrific details to what had transpired. And the students started reaching out, like outpouring of students, just banging down our door, needing guidance, help, advice, how to navigate this. So of course we set up a vigil, like that was our first thing, just come together in prayer like Jews do. We just come together and just give comfort and, just talk to God, right? Reach out to God, connect to God. And it was just very interesting for me to see how the students were coming in. And of course, these are students who just consume social media like it's, air. And because of that, they were privy to see some horrific things that, thank God, I did not see because I'm not on social media and I refuse to go on it. And I could tell which students saw what just on like their body language, how they entered the Chabad house. They were just pale, ghostly. They couldn't talk. They couldn't like communicate. It was horrible, and they were just crying, and they just needed hugs, and they just needed to be told that they're safe and everything will be okay. And even though I did not know everything, we still don't know, but we just hope and we pray that our efforts in connecting to God in prayer and it will affect change.
Okay, so everybody has this very visceral response. What then was the process that Chabad on campus and specifically there at USC that you put into play to sort of help the students integrate themselves into society? And then, as we've seen all around the country, here in Illinois and everywhere, these encampments, these protests, these people supporting barbarism and savagery, Did that go
Yeah.
on there in South Carolina? Can you give us a picture of what the months after October 7th started to look like?
Yeah, so it was really, really, really intense for the students here. Just to go back to your first question, sorry, I just want to make sure I'm following the order
Just
of your questions.
as the weeks start to unfold after that initial just horror
Oh,
and
yeah,
shock,
yeah,
what could
yeah.
you set up for them
So
on an ongoing basis?
So we actually had something very interesting that happened here and right before October 7th, like a couple weeks, a month before, our students decided they needed a Jewish or student organization. They called themselves our Gamecocks for Israel. That's what they're called, Gamecocks. And
Sports
so
teams.
Gamecocks for Israel. And there is a concept in Judaism that God prepares the healing before the plague. And so it was kind of like that. Like there, all of a sudden, there was this Jewish group that was just like catered to educating and supporting each other so it came from the students. And so we helped facilitate a lot of prayers and different types of money and donations and stuff like that, just to help empower the students and make them feel like they're making a difference and doing something to ease the pain and whatever is going
Now,
on.
let me jump in
Um,
and give us a sense, the students who come to University of South Carolina, do they have a strong Jewish background? Do they have a strong affiliation with Eretz Yisrael? Are they literate in Jewish texts, or are they less so? What's the
So
general
the
feel?
gamut, really the gamut. We have students who are really who grew up going to Chabad, going to CTeen, and know about Chabad and all that kind of stuff. And then you have students who are Reform, students whose parents don't even want them coming to learn too much and become too Jewish and too familiar with different things. So it's really the gamut, and it's really interesting how it really level the playing field. Like whether you were affiliated, non-affiliated before, it was like across the board. Everyone wanted to feel connected. Everyone wanted to come together. Everyone wanted to pray. Everyone wanted to do something Jewish. And it's interesting. A lot of the students who were dating non-Jews were saying we're only marrying Jewish. A lot of students who never put on tefillin. People were really awakened, I would say, spiritually awakened as a result of October 7th, at least
And
here.
what was your sense of their connection to Israel specifically? Like, were they familiar with Israel? Had they been to Israel? Do they kind of know about Israel, or it was just sort of more of an idea than really anything else?
A lot of them have done birthright. Some of them's parents were from Israel, so they had definitely family relation in Israel, and they became kind of the spokespeople for the students actually because they felt so they really it hit home more than your average student because they had so much family. They had aunts and uncles, cousins fighting, and it was really very. And we actually had media coverage, and the students and the president of the university met with students, the students who were affected directly, and it was just an interesting time.
Well, as we have seen, throughout the country with the encampments and the pro-terrorist rallies and the intimidation and the out and out violence. What was that like in University of South Carolina? What did you experience that? Did your students experience that? Was there violence? Was there this encampments and so on? And how did that play out there?
So we had a few things happen. We're a Republican state, and obviously on campuses things are a little more of like a liberal um, um, stance. So we don't have it as intense, as the other campuses, but we do have it. It's in every campus. You have this sort of thing. And so the students had different reactions. A lot of the API guys would go and we had. I just remember the first protest they had, pro Hamas protest, and the Jewish students were in an uproar. Like, how could this possibly happen? And the faculty, all they told the Jewish students are like, oh, just avoid the area. That's what they told them. And it was really discouraging for the students. They just felt marginalized and they felt like just not seen and heard. Another time, they have something called midnight breakfast during exam week. They have they have little like pancakes, whatever, as a study break. And these pro-Hamas protesters decided to camp out there and not let anyone enter. But something positive that happened, a student of mine was there. It was the second night of Seder, the second Seder, and she was there, and she was just so appalled and sickened by it. She's like, I need to connect Jewishly. And so she came to the second Seder just because of that. So what I'm trying to say is that it's just it's small on a smaller scale, but it's still there, and it's still making the students feel completely alone and isolated and marginalized, and they're afraid. They don't know who's their friend, who's their foe, and we had an Israeli kind of event on campus, in the center of campus, and these protesters came and stole the mic and started pushing students around. Like, it was a little intense. And the encampment, it was very small, it wasn't prolonged. It was an accidental thing that I heard about the encampment, because we had students coming to prepare for the Seder, and they were packing matzahs and maror, and they're pre-packaging in little packages. And I hear the two API guys discussing how they're going to go, and they're going to bring their boombox and play Hatikva out loud, and we're their Israeli flag. So I said, why don't you do something even better than that? Why don't you go put on tefillin and say Shema Yisroel, meaning, oh, God is only, and we're not afraid of you, and all that kind of stuff. And so we had Rabbi Yisroel meet. This was hours before the Seder. We were hosting 120 people for the Seder. He went there and he put on tefillin, and they were actually filmed on live TV. It was very cute. And so that just happened by accident. I was just overhearing it. And of course, the encampment didn't last very long, because they don't really have an audience for it.
As you mentioned, you're in a Republican state. What was the reaction of the broader community and the local government and the university? Were they supportive of the Jews? Were they?
So the local government community, very supportive, but the university did not come out with a statement, which was really hurtful to the students. They did not, and they refused to come out with a statement, and they've never denounced Hamas or said anything about they were just everybody should have peace, and everybody, it was no singling out, which was really discouraging to hear. And subsequent to that, the governor met with our student leadership, and they got to meet Tim Scott, and they got to go to the primaries. They got to do so many amazing things because of this outrage to this, but the president did come to one of our vigils, and he was listening to the students, and he, I don't pretend to understand how the legalities of it work, but, he wanted to show support, but obviously could not make a grandiose statement for whatever reason. Yeah.
Okay, so now fast forward to this trip that the Chabad Shluchos on campus were participated in, and you participated in. So just give us a background. Who came up with this idea? How did you hear about it? How did that work?
So every year, the campus Shluchos, which is a small segment of Chabad, Chabad is a big umbrella, and one of the subsequent, one of the smaller branches is Chabad on campus. There's students that are specifically for universities, and every year we get together in the summer when students are off, and we have a conference. It's a couple days long, and we just get recharged, and we feed ourselves, and it's an amazing 4-day conference. And this year, the organizers came out with a statement that they're hosting it in Israel this year, and we were all shocked and this is not a time for some leisurely trip to Israel. What are they thinking? And so they got on a Zoom call, and they told us why they're doing it. First of all, there's about 50 campus shluchim in Israel alone, which I did not even know. And obviously they can't come to the regular campus kinnos because it's just expensive, and it's hard to travel internationally. So they decided they wanted to bring the kinnos to them, to just uplift them and show them support. This was also to show support to our brothers and sisters in Israel. And it was also to bear witness to the atrocities, to educate ourselves and be able to educate our students. A lot of shluchos are on very liberal colleges. Their students and people who are in their student board are in the encampments and, protesting with Hamas. And it's very jarring to be able to handle that. And so this was also in support of that, to be able to educate, to be able to bear witness and bring that back home, as well as just, I guess, help the infrastructure and I will say, and so this trip came about in that way. There was some sponsorship, let's be real. There was someone who donated, and it was a 5-day trip. It was really an immersive, intensive experience, emotional roller coaster of an experience. About 150 shluchos joined from across the world. We're talking like, Paris and like everywhere, like across the globe, as well as all the local Israeli campus shluchos, and it really brought everyone together in like the most incredible way. Um, and it was a really, they took us everywhere. I don't know if we're up to that part yet, but
Well,
um,
let us start off this way. I know you've been to Israel many times before. You have a lot of family.
right,
What was the feel that you got? Like you land in Eretz Yisrael, and that's always so exciting. But
right.
now it must have just had a somewhat of a different feel. But then when you got out into the communities and you're just going about the sort of interaction, what do you sense is like the mood of what's going on in Eretz Yisrael now?
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of really apprehensive of going. I almost didn't go, but I was convinced to go because I had, like you said, I have a lot of family there and I would have got to visit them. And so every time I go to Israel, it's like exciting, anticipating just to see my family. And you walk out and you're walking into the entrance down to the customs and you're just like met with the faces of all the hostages walking down. And you're reminded, like, yes, you're in Israel, but this is what's going on. And it was very jarring for me, especially because Israel is always such an amazing. I every time I go, it's like with a lot of excitement and anticipation, and it was just like a reminder, like this is where it's at. And I was telling my husband, like when I was there, because he asked me the same question. I said, it feels like everyone's in mourning. It feels like you've come to a place that's in mourning, and it's really very unsettling because Israel is like full of life. The people there are full of life. They're like they love to live life, and and it's just like really down. And I will say that everyone I met and whoever heard where I'm from and that we came to visit were just gushing with just complete, like, just gratitude and appreciation for us coming and visiting and being in Israel, which that I did not expect. I did not expect that outpour of like, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your support and all that. Because I was saying, we're here for you. And they're like, thanking me. And it was just amazing.
Did they take you down south to the to where these events occurred? I mean, I don't want to get graphic
Yeah.
here, but
One yeah, one of the reasons I didn't really want to go on this trip because I did not want to go to Nova. I didn't want to go to all these places. I felt like I couldn't handle it emotionally because it was just still so fresh. I feel like the blood was still so fresh on the ground. And so what they did, and when you join the trip, you have to go everywhere. And so the first thing, they took us to Kfar Chabad, the main center of Chabad life in Israel, and we had lunch there. And from there, they took us straight to Sheba Medical Center, and that's the rehabilitation center for all the wounded soldiers, and got to hear firsthand accounts from all these wounded soldiers and people who really were affected. They lost limbs. Like, it's horrific. And yet, they were so hopeful and so positive and said they would do it again in a heartbeat for their country, which was unbelievable to me. And from there, like they took us back to Yerushalayim, where we stayed at the Ramada. The next day, they took us to Sderot. They took us to Nova, the Nova Festival site. We went there. We heard firsthand accounts of people who aided in the transport of people, saving hundreds of like lives. Single-handedly. These were non-military people, just people living in the kibbutz who got their like pickup trucks and just like back and forth, back hours and hours of trips back and forth with people in their pickup trucks. We obviously had said psalms and prayers there, and just walking around the ground, it was just very eerie. And you hear rockets going off in the background. Like, we're really very close to Gaza, and you hear the rockets, and it's really unsettling. And it's, but yet you want to be there because you want to bear witness to what's going on. And hopefully also, thinking as I'm walking around the pictures and all these, I'll show you pictures soon. I was just thinking of the opposite. God willing, one day, one day very soon, Mashiach will come, and it will be a place where people will dance and sing and celebrate. And it was trying to keep those two things at the same time. bearing witness, holding space, but yet being hopeful that we're going to be dancing very soon.
Oh man, you got pictures. We love to see them. Can
Yeah.
you put them on the screen?
Yeah, I was trying to like talk to you from my computer so I can share my screen, but I guess I can. How do I do this? Okay, so this is of us in Sderot. Right
Okay.
behind us, you see Gaza. This
Somebody
is
there with a
Gaza. We're
baby? Somebody
800
came
meters.
with a baby?
That's me.
That's
Me.
you?
That's your
And you
great
brought
niece.
my nephew?
That's your great niece right there.
There she is. Look at her.
They split us up. They split us up into 4 buses, and we went to we did this where we saw the overlooking Gaza, and I want to show you what we saw there. When we were there, we saw a rocket and I mean a missile, the war, and we were saying, as we were watching this unfold, we were saying psalms, and it was just such a really eerie moment, just to be there and witness this and just be right there at the front and center of it all, and it was just very, very interesting experience. And then this is Kfar Chabad. They have a 770 there, a replica of 770, and this is 150 shluchot. You can't really see, right? Hold on.
Yeah, we could see them.
I'm trying to. And then this is one of the soldiers, the reserve soldiers who was injured in Gaza. And this is another woman. She was a survivor. Hold on one second. I'm trying to, sorry.
That's
I'm trying
okay.
to open all this stuff on my, okay, so this is Chabad of Sderot, and right here you see behind me is their menorah, which is made of the rockets that fell in that area.
Oh my.
They
Oh
made
my.
and they light it. They actually light it, and
Oh wow.
you see right here a rocket, like you see on the building,
you see here, right?
and on the ground you see it. And it's really, we heard firsthand accounts from people who lost loved ones, from the shluchim who did not leave their post and were there servicing and helping and aiding the people in that area, which was unbelievable, under intense rocket and fire. And there was like a little boy, a son of the shliach, and the soldier asked him, like, what are you doing here, kid? You're and he's like, so the kid answers him back, what are you doing here? He's like, I'm here fulfilling a mission. And he's like, so I'm fulfilling a mission too. I'm I'm the Rebbe's soldier. And it was just, he was really cute. So we got to hear him, and the wife of the head of security there, who was unfortunately murdered, and so many others. This is my daughter. We went to the Kotel, obviously, her first time at the Kotel. We went to Keva Rachel, and we actually heard from one of the hostage moms, Rachel Poland. She's at Goldberg. She's she actually is a big advocate, and she talks a lot and
both
we got
his
to hear from her.
grandmothers live in Chicago. His
Oh,
grandmother,
wow.
Marcy
I didn't know
Goldberg, was
that.
at our program last night.
Wow. So she spoke to us beautiful. She said that, she could not miss out the opportunity to speak to us. She really wanted to address us. She felt so strengthened being among us. And she's like, just stay positive. I know, she's such a positive woman. It's unbelievable. Her inner strength is just unbelievable. And then we went to Hebron. I don't have the group photo here. And my daughter, whose name is Sarah. So we took a picture in front of the gravesite of our matriarch Sarah, and then a soldier just took a liking to her, and she was just really sweet. And these are all the shluchot. I mean, you can't really see. We didn't really fit.
We see it, sure.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And then it's just so many other. I don't even really have so many other pictures because I didn't have time. But it was just a phenomenal trip. Really a roller coaster, like I said, of a ride when it came to just. It was really intense, really intense. One of the highlights for me is going to Sderot. We went to visit a mikvah, and this woman built a mikvah. The entire mikvah was a bomb shelter. She had this idea to build this mikvah that's a bomb shelter because missiles are falling there constantly, and it's something that requires time and peace and tranquility, and she wanted that for the women. And we got to have a tour there, and it was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Well, Shlomit, thank you so much for sharing. If somebody wants to unmute and jump in with a quick question, We're so grateful and so proud of what you're doing there for the students at your university, giving them strength to stand up against this hatred and give them a strong Jewish identity, not just about the negative, like you tell the story of putting on tefillin with the students and having them for the Seder and going to Eretz Yisrael and bringing them strength and sharing that strength with us. So thank you.
Right.
Yasher koach to you and your husband and my nephews and your niece. And we're very proud of you. And we're so proud and glad that you joined. If anybody has a quick question or comment, this is the time. Otherwise, we will say goodnight. And tomorrow night, we'll continue our learning about 30 years.
Can I just
please.
add?
Of course.
Say that what I tell my students, because a lot of them suffer from what's called survivor's guilt. They can't reconcile the fact that they are living in America, seemingly carefree life, have freedoms, and like everyone in Israel their age are in war fighting, and it's just such a dichotomy that they can't wrap their heads around. And so I try to explain to them that, you know, wherever they are, it's the divine providence, and the fact that God chose them to be in South Carolina or Chicago or wherever they find themselves, it's for a reason. And we're, for whatever reason, have been chosen to be in this place, and we have a goal, and we have our mission, and our mission is to bring light and love and goodness and kindness and dispel all this darkness. And we need to bring the redemption within ourselves and perpetuate that to the world. And that's our mission. And that's what we can do in order to hasten the coming of Mashiach, in order to help our brothers and sisters.
Beautiful.
You know? Yeah.
Beautiful. Wow. Well said. Wow. Beautiful. Brilliant.
Yeah, we are also proud of you. You're so motivating. She's delightful. She's got that spirit. It makes me feel I've got to do more.
Good. That's her greatest compliment.
You're tremendous. You're tremendous.
Yes, we're all doing our part in our, you know, we just need to like light ourselves up and light our corner of the globe. And if we all do that, we're all helping to bring the ultimate.
You're doing your part. You're also doing my part. Don't you agree, Rabbi? Right?
Absolutely. That's why she married my nephew, so she could do all the hard work.
Well, your nephew's a lucky guy. That was a good
That
move.
is for sure. That is for sure. Okay. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody. Tomorrow night, we'll continue our